The juxtaposition between winter and spring is always so amazing, and I always find myself wondering why this shift is so much different than the shift from summer to autumn or autumn to winter. And I think it's because winter is harsh, and so we're looking for that harsh season to end, and spring is so unharsh and it's so dainty in nature that comparison between the two is actually quite stark. And I think it's the starkest of all the seasonal shifts. Today's project, I am working with a new digital collection that is in my Etsy store called Radiant Roses. As I look outside my window and see the snowflakes falling, I am definitely looking towards warmer days where the roses will be blooming and the bees will be buzzing. So I thought that instead of having that outside my window, I will at least be able to have that on my craft table. So it started out by printing each of the pages in a smaller size, and I just used Google Docs to do that. So you can see that I just placed the image inside of a Google Doc. I changed the margin. The margin on top was very small and the margin on the left was very small. And I wanted to be able to get 2 to a page because I didn't want to waste any of my matte photo paper. So I figured out that the height for me to get 2 was 4.81. So I just resized all of the heights to 4.81. And then I printed it on my photo matte paper, and here it is. So I want to make these little pockets, like journal pockets, journal sachets, to either tuck some journaling into or to tuck photos or some sort of a pocket that I can add to a page, clip to a page or glue to a page. So I trimmed all of them down, and I started using an index card as my guide as to how wide I wanted it, because I thought an index card would be a nice way to utilize it as far as journaling was concerned. So after I gave them all kind of a once over, I decided to fold them at the width that I wanted them all to be. I've been using this kit a lot for all sorts of different things. I made some actual journaling cards with them yesterday, and I also made a fun little spring folio that is just really so beautiful, and I think I might use it for spring break, to document spring break. I do like to have separate journals for specific events, especially when my kids are off of school, and so I think I might use it to document anything that we do during that time. Once I have them all folded, I decided how I wanted to back each of them. And I thought that doing them all differently would be a fun little way to create the pockets. So for the first one, I decided to just trim where I folded it. And I was going to add just a simple back to it using a piece of vintage magazine. This is a magazine that is from, I think this one is from 1899, or maybe it's 1912. I can't remember, but regardless, it's well over 100 years old. I only glued the 2 sides and the bottom because I did want that top to be open so I could stick some things down into it, whether that's pictures or journaling or whatever. And so now I'm just going to go around the edges and level all the sides up so it's nice and flush and even. This next one, I had this beautiful piece of vintage, I don't really want to call it lace. It was more like trim. You can see it here. It's on the thicker side, and it's just so beautiful, and it goes with this image particularly so well. I don't know what it is, but I used it when I made the journaling cards for it too. I just think it complements it so well. So I decided to glue the fold over. I wasn't going to remove this one, and then I was going to add this piece of vintage textile vertically to create the closure. So I'm just going to glue it to the edge of the piece of paper that's folded and glue it to the edge of the front cover, and also glue the bottom down. So I'm maintaining that pocket so I'm still able to stick something in it. I just trimmed the top of the textile, and I had this really sweet little pocket, and I was like, okay, this is really cute. This isn't exactly what I thought of when I sat down to do it, but I love how things just kind of flow when you're sitting at your craft desk. So once again, I'm just trying to make sure that I've got a nice space in there to stick some things inside of it. For this next one, I thought that I might use the vellum on the back to create the closure. So I just glued the bottom and the sides, caring not to do the top, and I glued the edge of the vellum down, and then I just trimmed around it to create that back panel. While I'm doing this, I wanted to mention, in case you didn't know, that I am actually having a design team call. So if you're interested in becoming a member of my design team, you'll have access to all of my digitals, and you'll be required to create 3 projects a month. The deadline is tomorrow, so see the description down below for all the requirements if you're interested. After I got the vellum attached and trimmed, I decided to add a little bit of vintage lace to the top of my little pocket here, and I really like this vintage lace because it's not exactly white, and so I feel like it went with the pocket very well. For this final one, I decided to add this wider piece of vintage lace to the back. It is really beautiful, and it goes perfectly with this image. I wanted to mention that I have begun selling more physical items in my Etsy store too. I recently listed a bunch of vintage books that I just don't have the room for anymore. I have been spring cleaning, and it has become apparent that I need to clear my shelves. I'm going to be selling a lot of vintage books. I've already sold a whole bunch. As soon as I put them in, they seem to go, so you might want to check. There is one left in there now, and I'm also going to be listing a lot of vintage lace packs and textile packs, and maybe some junk journal kits as well that I've curated. So you might want to check my store every so often, or I think if you hit the heart button on Etsy, then you'll get notified when something new gets listed. Or follow me on social media, and then I try and post when I list new things, but I don't always do it. So probably liking the shop might be the best way to get notified. So I just have so much vintage lace and so many beautiful textiles that I thought that it would be nice to start offering those in my shop as well. So this I'm just gluing like I did the second one. I am making sure that I leave the top open, but I am gluing all of the sides and the bottom down. Once I have everything glued down, I just trim up the sides, and I really like the way the lace is peeking out from the side. I think that is just so beautiful. And I trim everything up, and I make sure that the pocket is functioning, and then I gather all of my pockets up to kind of take a final look. It's then that I decide to do some sewing around the perimeter of each pocket. I also decided to add a little half circle or quarter circle notch at the top of this blue one. Since this was the one that didn't have any sort of lace or textile added to it, I just thought that adding that little detail was a little extra special. I'm so glad that I did go ahead and add a little bit of sewing, because I really feel like it kind of completes the look, kind of when you sew something and then you top stitch it, and it's just like the final step. It's what actually completes the whole project. I really feel that this top stitch on these pockets are perfect. Now, if you do not sew or you don't have a sewing machine, you can always do it by hand, or you can do some sort of a faux stitching. I think that would be nice as well to kind of complete the whole entire look. I'm so pleased with the way that these turned out. Oh my gosh, I just love them so much, and I love how different they are. I'm really excited to use them. I'm probably going to use them in my new spring journal, which I have yet to make. I'm just finalizing a new kit called Pages for Our Spring Journal. There's a lot of classic art, a lot of beautiful spring florals, and I'm really excited to launch that in my Etsy store. This is my folio that I was talking about earlier that I made out of this Radiant Roses kit, and I just love it so much. And like I said earlier, I think I'm probably going to use this to document spring break. I did print all of these digitals on the cotton linen paper, so it's much more muted than the pockets I just made. Those were printed on a premium matte paper, and those are a little bit brighter and the image is a little bit deeper and darker. But I always think it's fun to see the way things are printed side by side, just so you can get an idea of what it's supposed to look like. I also made some journal cards from this kit. I printed them on the cotton linen paper, so they're a little bit more muted, and I printed them much smaller so they would fit onto index cards. And you can see I've really been loving this kit. I've been making so many things from it. It's just so much fun to have matching cards and pockets. I don't know if I'm going to use them together. I'm really not sure, but I had so much fun making them, and I'm definitely going to use them regardless if I use them together. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that this video brought you some inspiration on some upcoming projects that you might be working on. As always, I will list everything I talked about down below in the description box. Thank you so much for supporting my videos and my little Etsy store. I'll see you next time.